Дні порахували.
Добрий день.
Hello, welcome at Ukraine Media Center at Ukraine Forum. Our today's briefing is about a new system for the community notification about emergencies. We have with us Prymush, Deputy Head of the State Emergency Service, person in charge of digital development and digital transformations. So we have seen over the time of the war how important it is to have warnings about emergency situations such as air raids. I believe the creation of this system has been discussed for years, and now finally we see it happening. So how is it gonna happen? Hello. Yes, thank you. Indeed, on September 7th, we have started testing of this system in the entire territory of Ukraine. The idea is to warn the citizens about emergencies using their cell phones. The system uses service information channels of cell phone operators. Basically, the system uses the base stations of mobile operators, and this way the messages are sent to the users of the cell phone. And LifeCell, Vodafone, Kyivstar are the providers we are working with. We are also working with the Association of Mobile Providers. Also, we had support of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, of the special information service, and basically we see that we can cover between 60 and 70% of users. The project started in April this year. We understood that warnings were crucial for evacuation, for warning people about any kinds of emergencies such as chemical, radioactive, etc. And so we began to work to set up the system. It's a huge process. We need to set up the mobile operators stations for them to carry the same system of signals. Also, we needed to work with all the equipment vendors, making sure that all types of equipment, including smartphones, should support the signal. We worked with Google and Apple, which are providing cell phones and their operation systems to Ukraine. So we have arrived at this number, and we aim at least 90% of the population. So we are going to work to increase the coverage. Right now, the suitable versions of Android are between 7 and 12, and also all the iOS smartphones between versions 12 and 15. So we are now working to include older versions of telephones to cover even the simplest mobile phones, the ones with the buttons. So the advantage is that one can get a notification even when the connection is very weak. And one more advantage is delivering the notification immediately. In the beginning of the war, we were sending text messages, but it took a lot of time. In some territories, it could get to the users in 3 or 4 hours if the network is overloaded. So this way we are getting this advantage, and we have also launched a center for warning the population with support of our operators. So right now it's at the testing stage, and it's the responsibility of local governments to warn their citizens. So once we test the system, we are going to install a workplace in every regional administration where they will be able to inform the population. We will train the personnel on how to use the system, and I believe that somewhere since November or December, we will start using the system to the full scale of its capacity. So will this be a text message or any type of sound, alarm sound? Actually, they are quite unusually looking notifications. The sounds they are making are very different from all the other sounds your cell phone can make, be it a text message or messenger notification, etc. It's long sounds between 15 and 20 seconds, unless the person stops it. It is followed with cell phone vibration, and by the way, the sound is not really pleasant because the intention is to warn a person. So we are right now hearing from the users that the sound is quite unpleasant. But yes, please understand this. Usually we will not be getting as many warnings as we are getting now. In total, there can be 20 to 30 such messages in a year in peaceful times. And especially the system will be relevant in mountainous areas because the weather changes are very frequent, and quite often the tourists are not informed about rapid changes of weather, but with such a system it will be possible to warn people in a couple of hours, and they will be able to come back from the dangerous area. And so there can be warnings about floods, about earthquakes, about forest fires. All of this will be the basis for informing people. So such systems are available in Western countries in the USA. Have you used their experience, or have you added any innovations? You are correct. These systems are not some kind of novelty. They work in countries of the EU, in the US, in Australia. They are quite widespread, and in your cell phone you even have separate settings, emergency notifications. We have basically activated them in Ukraine. We worked with vendors to set this up. I believe our coverage will be higher than that in the European countries because they have set up their levels earlier, and right now there are updates of the equipment. We are just forced to make sure all the settings are up to date. Any questions, please?
Three questions, actually. First question, will your new technology also include features for UXO reporting? And second question, was the Ministry of Digital Transformation involved in any of the tech development for your tools? And thirdly, could you elucidate on Google and Apple's involvement that you mentioned?
I will begin with your last question. The role of Google and Apple was cooperation with us in terms of setting up their operation systems for getting these notification messages. So Apple and Google operating systems have to be set up in a certain way for the smartphones to receive this notification. So for Google versions 7 and higher, and for iOS versions 12 and higher, we were able to set them up. The Ministry of Digital Transformation, of course, was taken part directly, providing us support specifically in terms of regulations through the State Service of Special Communication. So their specialists were directly involved. Our specialists were working on technical issues with the mobile operators, and the Ministry of the Internal Affairs and Digitalization was helping us. And question one, please, can you repeat?
Will there be UXO reporting features in this version of your tooling, or any future version that's on the trajectory? Or is that entirely separate?
No, reporting will not be there. There are certain problems we are having with getting feedback concerning this system, so this functionality is so far not available. So you're speaking of the feedback, right? I mean, it was most probably about Airaid warnings and trajectories of missiles, correct?
Що стосується, дивіться, це
So this way we will be sending all kinds of notifications about all kinds of emergencies, including air raid warnings. But this will be introduced once we are in the full-scale use mode. Right now, many people are using air raid warnings applications, but the problem is sometimes internet is not available. And in this case, they are not getting the message. And we also understand that once the war is over, the application for air raids will not be used as frequently as it is used now. So we are already thinking how to replace these applications. I have one more follow-up question. How will the system work at the temporarily occupied territories? Today we are not testing the system in the territories with active hostilities, with the shellings, because of the high number of different provocations by the enemy. We do not want to disturb people living in those territories. But the system will be available everywhere where mobile operators and their equipment are active. So in the majority of occupied territories, our operators do not have functional equipment, or they only have some partial coverage, which is not available 24/7. So once we launch the system for the full-scale use, depending on the situation in Ukraine and the work of mobile operators, we will be thinking how to work with the occupied territories. And also, how long will it take for you to test the system, and what is theoretically the time when you're going to launch the full-scale use? And also, you're saying that right now the coverage is about 60%, but how long will it take to get fuller coverage? So I spoke about the percentage of people covered, not about the territory. We are covering all the territory, so we can send our notifications everywhere. The problem is that some smartphones are older, so some of the ZTE cell phones and the older cell phones as well. In this regard, it's not covering everyone. The testing is going to take place in September. And then once we discover any glitches in the system, there will be the time for patching the system in October, after which we are going to start testing for Airaid warnings, for instance. It depends on the results of the previous tests of the system. We want to be sure that the system is functioning perfectly well before we launch it for the full population. And the final question, how many applications you got through the mine-free application for demining of the territories? I don't have the correct numbers right now, but in total, I'd say the demining service had a total number of 6,000 of such messages, but this is a total of mine-free, demining Ukraine, web version of our portal. In total, 6,000 approximately. Thank you so much. This was Media Center Ukraine Forum. I am Alina Frolova. Follow us on social media and see you tomorrow.